We have seen 4 weeks of data points for the college football season, and here's how Brandon Marcello sees it. Canes, the #1 team in the land. You've also got Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Oregon in the top 5. And how about that? Notre Dame still sticking in there, finally getting a win, number 25. A whole lot of new faces here in this ranking, so why not ask the face of the rankings and welcome in our friend Danny Kanell and Brandon Marcello. Of course, you've got Miami staying on top in the ranking. We had one more data point, as I mentioned here, in their win against Florida. What about that victory has you feeling secure about Miami on top?
The defense is legit. They looked at the part in week 1 against Notre Dame. They've continued to prove it. They only allowed 141 yards against the Gators, and that offense has been struggling all year, but that's the lowest total for Florida since 1999. This Miami team overall is the best one, I think, with the best resume so far through this season. They have just beaten everybody and done so pretty handily. Other than that opener against Notre Dame, they seem to be gelling a little bit better as well defensively as they continue to go on. This just looks like a team that's getting stronger with every passing week. And I'll tell you what, you're looking at it now. I can't wait till they go to Florida State in a couple of weeks, Danny Kanell.
I'm with you, Brandon, on that one. Florida State does have a little tricky matchup this Friday night against Virginia, but this Hurricanes team I do think is legit. I agree with you. I think they're the best team in the country. I also think they have the best resume because of the quality of the wins they've gotten. And what's impressed me about them, you mentioned it, is the defense. When your offense doesn't have your fastball, and it was understandable, it was wet, it's been raining down in South Florida every single day almost, it feels like, and when you're still able to get Mark Fletcher to tote the rock the way he did, and then a defense just be as dominant as it gets, maybe one of the best offseason hires that hasn't been given enough attention is Corey Heatherton coming over from Minnesota. This defense reminds me of the defenses that I played against. Guys like Ray Lewis and Warren Sapp and Ed Reed, historically great players. And I would add Ruben Bain to that list. So I'm starting to see his name pop up in the Heisman conversation as some of the quarterbacks really didn't shine this opportunity when they had the opportunity to do so. I don't think it's that crazy. Now, statistically, he has to pick up the level, and he has to get up there, probably lead the country in sacks. But the impact that he's having, Akeem Mesidor on the other side, has been phenomenal. This Hurricane defense has been lights out, and the offensive and defensive lines combined might be the best front line group of anybody in the country. So totally agree with you. They've looked awesome this far, and that is going to be an incredible atmosphere in Tallahassee in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm glad you both mentioned defense with this conversation because shifting to Indiana, I don't think that's going to lead the convo when we talk about the Hoosiers, because an absolute beatdown over Illinois. How did that change your perspective on this team? They went from unranked to number 6 in your rankings, Marcello.
Yeah, I've been holding off on them because of the schedule. If I'm going pure power rankings, they hadn't played anybody yet. I mean, Indiana State, etc. But you always kind of knew, had an inkling that this looks like a top 15, top 10 type of team. I just needed to see them play someone with a pulse. Well, they played someone with a pulse, and they put them down. I mean, goodness gracious. Illinois is a team that prides itself to be the most physical and bullying team in the trenches. And Indiana just said, we're not putting up with that. We're going to run over you. We're going to throw over you. And we're going to dominate this game. Fernando Mendoza has been incredible. He has 10 touchdowns in the last 2 games, only 3 incompletions during that time. 5 touchdowns against Illinois. This offense is incredible. And again, once again, proves that Curt Cignetti here in year 2, his money ball type approach to the transfer portal, where he goes and gets guys who were productive and then also have veteran leadership. In the past, he was getting guys from James Madison, some 3-star guys at some programs, and was able to bring in and kind of fit some holes. Now he's got some actual power conference transfers that come in, and he's upgraded. And this team looks to me potentially even better than the version we got last year. We'll see as they play some tougher opponents here down the stretch, especially coming up against Iowa. But man, how can you discount the job that Curt Cignetti has done with this program? They have a good resume now, and I believe definitely deserving to be in the top 10 and very close to the top 5.
You're probably a little bit higher on them than me, but I think it makes total sense. Like, they've been incredible. I thought they upgraded at the quarterback position. I did like what I saw from Fernando Mendoza last year at Cal behind a really bad offensive line. He still had incredible playmaking skills. I didn't think you'd get this much of an upgrade. I mean, speaking of Heisman Trophy, he's the leader right now because of some of those numbers and that performance that he put together. And I think Kirk Cignetti is still very irritated from the way they were treated both at the end of last year when there were a lot of people pounding the table so they don't deserve a spot in the playoff, which I completely disagreed with. I thought they should have been in the playoff. But then even more so, once they lost to Notre Dame, there were a lot of critics and analysts saying, see, we told you they didn't belong. We told you they didn't belong. Kirk Cignetti heard those cries, and he is on a mission to continue to prove people wrong. This Indiana team wasn't a fluke last year. They're not a fluke every year, that they're actually going to be a contender in the Big Ten year by year by year. And through 2 years and 4 games, they look like they're going to be that. Now, they do have a tricky spot at Iowa this weekend, at Oregon, another couple big tests for them on the road. Can they take that on the road and win as impressively? I don't know, but they still can win those games clearly, and they are one team to keep an eye out for sure.
Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah, one thing real quick. I want to say one thing real quick also. The defense, they sacked Luke Altmaier 5 times in that game. That's something to watch, especially against an Iowa team where I think Gronowski, as good as he's been here late, that could be an issue with them matching up against this Indiana defensive line.
Yeah, Cignetti at halftime was asked, what's the key to the second half? And he said, more points. You could just tell absolute stone cold wanted to destroy the opponent and did. A 53-point win is the largest win from a non-top 10 team over a top 10 team. Speaking of the top 10, you've got Texas Tech now in there after a big win at Utah. They're off to their best start in over a decade. So why are they the clear Big 12 favorite here? Because you've got them as the highest ranked Big 12 team.
I mean, Utah, to me, was the Big 12 favorite going into last week. Texas Tech storms into Salt Lake City, pulls away in the fourth quarter, and as much talk as we give them about the rich roster they have, all the money they've spent on everything, it's a backup quarterback that has to come in for an injured Baron Morton, and Will Hammond shows that he's got some dog in him. Throws 2 touchdown passes there in the fourth quarter. Also, just an amazing performance off of the bench to lead them to a double-digit victory there in Salt Lake City. And then the big storyline for me for Texas Tech is their defensive front is absolutely dominant. They spent about $5 million on those guys in the transfer portal and putting it together here in the last year or two, and they just ravaged Utah up front. And Utah is a program under Kyle Whittingham that has always been very good up front on the offensive line and the defensive line. But the big thing to watch here at Texas Tech going down the stretch is that they've got a defensive line that I think no one else in the Big 12 quite has. It's going to be very hard for a lot of offenses to get ready to face this Texas Tech defensive line. That's going to carry them, I believe, all the way to Arlington and to the Big 12 championship this year.
No doubt. I mean, just a reminder, that was on the road at Rice Eccles. I mean, that's one of the tougher places to play. That's why I leaned towards Utah before the game, and they dominated. Defense does travel. And you mentioned some of those pieces. David Bailey, Romello Height. They had an entire new defensive line that went out and purchased, which we've all talked a lot is the #1 transfer portal class. But they are playing together like a unit. That was also a question mark for me because even when you go out and get all these different players, how do they combine and come together and compete with all the different moving parts when you want your defense to play like one? They were dominant, and they completely shut down Devin Dampier, the quarterback for Utah, who's a dual threat. We're able to keep him in check on the ground. They never had any offense going all afternoon long. And then when their offense was struggling, because they weren't playing great, Baron Morton had 2 interceptions. Then he goes out with a concussion. You have a backup step in and just fling it around. It doesn't look like they've lost anything whatsoever. This Texas Tech is absolutely the most complete team in the Big 12, and with all the pressure, all the expectations, I feel like that was a huge weight off their shoulders to at least prove to themselves, all right, we can be this team that is supposed to take a step forward this year.
While we're talking about backup quarterbacks, how about your number 12 team, Ole Miss? Trinidad Chambliss, once again, back-to-back games with 300-plus passing yards, has yet to throw an interception this season when coming in for the injured Austin Simmons, who apparently Lane Kiffin said after the game was feeling just fine. So, Brandon Marcello, what do we think about this Ole Miss team with Chambliss under center?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think it's a quarterback controversy when your head coach is just like, I think we've got a better quarterback right now, and he's on the field starting for us and producing. I really like this Ole Miss team offensively. I think for me, what they've got to continue to do is just to improve defensively as they move forward. I want to see a little bit more out of them. I want to see more turnovers forced by that Ole Miss defense. And this week, with them going against an LSU team that has struggled quite a bit offensively at times, we recently found out that quarterback Garrett Nussmeier has been struggling with an upper torso injury. So the question for LSU going against Ole Miss this week is that a Nussmeier injury issue, or is that just an issue with everybody else around him with that offense? Because this offense for LSU has struggled significantly. I really like Ole Miss in this spot to kind of knock LSU down a peg among the SEC contenders and kind of almost supplant LSU in that conversation in the SEC as everybody tries to fight to maybe be the second or third best team in the SEC. The Rebels in a very good spot, and I never would have thought to say they'd be doing so with Trinidad Chambliss, a transfer from Division II. But again, that just shows you that Lane Kiffin can mold and find quarterbacks and then be able to work them into the offense. The system just works.
Brandon, I had them as a playoff team in the preseason, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think it was because of Austin Simmons. Like, all the expectations around him being a great player, and he was anything but. I mean, I think that's why this is a really easy decision for Lane Kiffin. It'd be one thing if Simmons was balling in his first couple games, but he struggled with the interception bug, and that's been the most important thing with Trinidad Chambliss, the 6 total touchdowns, but a clean sheet in the turnover column. That is of utmost importance to any coach. And I do think the defense took a huge step forward. Tulane, with Jake Retzlaff, they were putting up some pretty big numbers. They had to bench him, and you held him to just 10 points. This will be a massive, massive opportunity for them to really put a statement early on this season, because I still think LSU is a really good football team. And Garrett Nussmeier mentioned the injury. The offensive line was a big question mark, and they haven't found an answer yet to any sort of rotation up front. This could be an opportunity for Ole Miss's defense to take another step forward. And I think Trinidad Chambliss has given the old Wally Pipp treatment to Austin Simmons, because I think it's his job to lose now.
Yeah, another line we need to add on that comparison graphic is there is a 4-year age difference between these two quarterbacks, and that's kind of come into play in their play so far in this early season. Brandon Marcello, Danny Kanell, thank you both so much. And if you want more Kanell, you know where to find it over on the Cover 3 podcast. It is upon further review Monday. The team had some time to break down all the action from over the weekend. They bring you best bets throughout the week. This is the podcast for college football fans. Check it out. Watch now on YouTube, scan that QR code, listen wherever you get your podcasts.